All right, hello everybody. Welcome to today's session. This session, The Road to Kibana, learn how a PeopleSoft customer paved their way to data visualizations, will be presented by me, Gary Dranikoski from SpearMC Consulting. I thank everyone for attending this session and really hope that you're able to get a lot out of the session as I cover sort of some of the basics about Kibana and the history, and then show some custom examples of work that we did. So very exciting stuff, and looking forward to presenting this to you today. So about me, my name's Gary Dranikoski, and I'm a director with SpearMC Consulting. I'm out of our Pittsburgh office, and my specialty and focus is really analytics and managed services. So I started my journey with PeopleSoft back in 2000, and I was with actually PeopleSoft, hired out of grad school directly into PeopleSoft's professional development program. I've been doing PeopleSoft off and on since then, and the times that I've been off has really been focused on reporting and analytics. So most of those projects were Oracle BI and sourced either from PeopleSoft or Oracle EBS in most of the instances. A few smaller side data warehouse projects and things like that. But PeopleSoft reporting and analytics has been really my life in my professional career. So a lot of experience that I can bring to the table in this space. Real quick, before I get started in the rest of the session, SpearMC, we have a ton of sessions this week, and I wanted to flash all of these up. A lot of great colleagues of mine have sessions throughout the week. I think I don't even know the list here. It looks like 12 sessions maybe. So look for our sessions. I have another session tomorrow, but my other colleagues, you may know some of them: Randy, Lagesh, Millie, Tom, Jessica, Cameron. So a lot of sessions this week. Please take time to seek these out. They spend a lot of time on these and have a lot of great information to share. So about SpearMC, our organization, we were formed back in 2004. We've been doing PeopleSoft specifically since then. And I'm out of our Pittsburgh office, which opened in 2019 when I was hired. And, we really cover PeopleSoft across the United States and quite a few customers in Canada, as well as along with a few other international customers that we've serviced over the years, but primarily a PeopleSoft-centric shop. And really, we went all in on PeopleSoft several years ago. So as a lot of companies started looking into other products, cloud products, other areas, we doubled down on PeopleSoft. And that has really been a reward as a firm, as we were recently recognized by Gartner for our professional services and OCI. So super excited about that. When I found out about that earlier this year, I was just like, wow, Gartner. I mean, this is great. I didn't even know that was in the process of happening. So super excited about that. And the other certifications that we have through Oracle, formerly of the Platinum program, but now we have specializations in both PeopleSoft and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Our services focused primarily in the PeopleSoft space, and at the center of that, and we're referring to all the different modules, so FSCM, HCM, ELM, and Campus. Large managed services practice, a lot of Oracle Cloud hosting, resell on hosting, emerging technology, and some of these sessions we have throughout the week. We really hit on almost all of these. Training, so we actually started as a training firm. So we continue to do training over the years, and we're an Oracle partner for training as well. And then obviously analytics at the top. So if you combine really those two blocks on the left side, analytics being Kibana, and training, there's a class we're offering on May 25th, which will be a hands-on training. So I thought I would point that out since this class specifically spoke to Kibana. This session, not class. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Today is mostly Kibana, a little bit about the reporting and history of reporting in PeopleSoft, and then Kibana and the Elastic Company. So how did Kibana become part of this overall stack within PeopleSoft. Then, now that we understand sort of the background, what's actually delivered with Kibana and what can that provide you? And what if it doesn't meet everything that you want? Can you customize that? What does it take to actually customize that? And then a quick wrap up, and then we'll have Q&A. And throughout there will be a demo around the custom solution area. I think Oracle does a really good job in all of their presentations of talking about the various delivered dashboards and out-of-the-box capability, and that's well documented. If you sat in, yesterday in Paka's session, or I also listened in on Robin's session, who is a huge proponent of Kibana. So within the HCM space there, and then also I think it was Amira's session a little bit. She touched on Kibana as well. So it's definitely a technology that Oracle has embraced, and they continue to build on it, and a lot of exciting things happening with Kibana, whether we look at the actual data that is being brought in and how recent and relevant it is, really in real-time data versus just the breadth of topics available in subject areas and content, ways that you can build different reports. So a lot of investment by Oracle. So talking really about the various tools that are available, if we think about reporting in PeopleSoft, traditional at the beginning, there was PS Query and SQR, and these tools, they are very powerful tools. I mean, you can extract data, at detailed and granular levels, and it will provide it to you in a Excel or some sort of CSV file, and you can, really just get all the information. But at the end of the day, it's mostly just a data dump that then you need to sift through, or you have to pare it down through your actual queries. But, nothing really visual coming out of these tools. Next, Envision and BI Publisher. Once again, tools that meet a specific need or purpose. So Envision, especially for all our accounting friends out there, a powerful tool that allows you to really integrate Excel with your PeopleSoft data, being able to drill down and look at data as you go through the various layers. Then BI Publisher, that is beginning to provide a little bit of data visualization with more formatted reporting, and also being able to create your own little custom data sets so that you can, create this data model and provide a subset of data easily to end users. Next, we start talking about embedded analytics, and that's really the focus of my presentation today. And two parts of embedded analytics are pivot grids and Kibana. So pivot grids, they were first to come out as the analytical tool within PeopleSoft and reporting, and those will hit directly against the transactional database. They provide some nice visualizations, but one of the biggest complaints with those is performance, and they're just difficult to use because if you try to do extensive amounts of data, they're just slow and cumbersome. This is where Kibana came in, and rather than going against the transactional database, we're actually going against the search indexes. So Kibana is a great way to process large amount of data in a visual format, provide that in some sort of graphs or visualizations, and you're hitting the Elasticsearch indexes. So take all of those reporting tools there, and we have them sitting in this grid. So what is in this grid here? These are across the top, each one of those tools. And I created this so that I could help customers understand what each tool is really good for. And if you think about it, I just mentioned Kibana was really good at large data sets. Also, SQR is really good at large data sets. The other tools, I think I made them all red there, but you could argue that some of those could be a yellow and not a red. But next one, built for speed, very similar to the large data set concept, and that's probably where I went between red and yellow specifically on query. Notifications. So focusing specifically on that far right column in Kibana, you actually can see that the notifications are not one of Kibana's strong points, but that's really a push notification. But if you think of the notification being a visualization on a dashboard or some sort of embedded content, that's a little bit more where Kibana comes in, but not something that it's just sending out to you, say in your email per se. Advanced visualizations, Kibana, it looks, like an advanced data tool. We're not talking just Excel and graphs from Excel. These are capabilities in Kibana are far exceed anything else available directly from PeopleSoft. Ease of use from an end user perspective, Kibana is very easy, as well as even building Kibana visualizations. I made that green, but sometimes as we go through this, you do have to know how to build search indexes, how to modify those to get the data that you want. But once the data is there, but you're going to have that challenge, anywhere. But specifically with Kibana, because you're not querying against a database itself, you are querying against the search index. The data that you want to report on does need to be in that search index. Real-time, Kibana does go against the search indexes, which is yellow. And the reason I have that yellow, so every time you rerun your search indexes, that is how fresh your data will be. But with PeopleTools 859, they have developed a way to make real-time data, but that is not available in 858. So yellow there, and I haven't actually seen the 859 and real-time data, so I'm going to keep that yellow for now. End user creation, once again, creating the end user visualization is pretty easy, but the behind the scene data set, that's why I made that one yellow. And Excel integration, I have that red. I mean, aside from just downloading to Excel, it's not like with Envision where you can go in and have Excel open and it's refreshing the data and pulling it in. So good information across all the reporting tools. And as you think about, what type of report do you have? Where are your trouble points in reporting? Or is there some set of data that you would like to see, but it's so slow it never works? Is Kibana a candidate for something like that? So take this as a takeaway and leverage this information to help you make decisions. So why is everyone talking about Kibana? It's the visualizations. It's the speed at which it works. So powerful visualizations. Kibana offers 16 or 18 different visualizations available to customers. And those are things, as you can see here, pie charts, a metric, which is really just a single number that provides information. You could have a gauge, which is down there on the bottom left, and then a different type of pie chart on the right. Then you could also have just a detailed grid of information. But when a Kibana dashboard renders, and I keep saying this, I don't want to feel like a broken record, but that data, we are pulling it from the Elasticsearch indexes, so we are not hitting the actual database. Kibana does a great job allowing you to report trends across time. None of these graphs are showing that, but as you bring in a time dimension, you can see how data has moved over a period of time. Included in PeopleTools. So what does that mean? You get Kibana just by being on PeopleTools 857, 858, 859. We'll talk about in the next slide or two what I mean by 857, 858, 859, but realistically, everything I'm going to speak about is from 858 and beyond. So Kibana is owned by a company called the Elastic Company, and I think now I'm drawing a blank on the name. Anyway, they have three main products: Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash. And Oracle partnered with them and brought those tools into the PeopleTools 858 install, so that now you can do an install and include these data elements, and you're able to use these tools, and it's embedded directly into PeopleTools. So your security rules that exist within PeopleSoft will get applied to Kibana as well. And this provides so many different options because you are able to leverage any data security, whether it is row level security or you can limit which users can access particular pages. All of those things, when it comes to Kibana reports and visualizations, can be controlled within PeopleSoft. Then the final thing is the near real-time data. So in the future, that will be real-time, but for now, it's however often you are refreshing those search indices. I talked about this on the previous slide, but this is the Elastic company, and ELK, the ELK stack. So Elasticsearch, that is the tool that is used for search. And that's the tool that Oracle has chosen for their PeopleSoft product to handle all the search. Logstash, that is another tool from the Elastic company, which really is like an ETL type tool that extracts data out of various log files, chat messages, a lot of different types of files, and can load that information into an Elasticsearch index so that the bottom tool, Kibana, can actually create reports and visualizations and inevitably dashboards on that data set. So ELK, the ELK stack. The Elastic company also has a few other tools. For our intents today, and really for everything that I've used from a PeopleSoft perspective, these are the three main tools, and this is what is included in PeopleSoft. So how did that happen, this whole ELK, Kibana? Where did this come from? In PeopleTools 855, prior to PeopleTools 855 technically, Secure Enterprise Search, SES, was the search capability within PeopleSoft. I'm sure that those who have been around the PeopleSoft world for a while remember that and maybe also want to forget that. So in 855, Elasticsearch was brought in as an option, an alternative to SES, but they were both still available. In 856, Elasticsearch replaced SES, so it went by. 857, now that Elasticsearch is available throughout all PeopleSoft installations, 857 and beyond, they said, well, let's use their Kibana tool as well. And we can do reports against some system administrator or some performance and system logs. But this was something that was available to system administrators, not really end users, not business data. It was mostly just used, and I say mostly used, I don't even know how much it was used, but it was something that was there and available. But they didn't just let that die on the vine. They actually took that a step further, and as people continued to look at Kibana, they said, well, if we have all the data in Elasticsearch indexes, why don't we just use those indexes and put Kibana on top of those and report on PeopleSoft data? So that is 858. And it's not just that simple. I mean, they didn't want to have just a separate tool outside of PeopleSoft and PeopleTools that allowed you to do the reporting. You also had to take into consideration things that I talked about earlier, like security and integration into PeopleSoft pages. So in 858, the development team did a tremendous job bringing all of those pieces together so that you can now embed Kibana content directly in PeopleSoft. They also created what is called the PeopleSoft Health Center dashboard, which uses the Logstash tool. And that is a way that that Logstash ETL tool, when you go through your install of Kibana, you can pull that data in, and your system administrators have a much more robust health center than what was available in 857. But that only got you so far. Beginning with 858, there were no delivered dashboards or content other than the existing search indexes. You could custom build things. But in 858, one of the POMs, I think 32 for HCM, maybe 34 for finance, somewhere in that range, they started releasing delivered dashboards and additional pre-built search indices so that you could create additional content or indexes that weren't built specifically for search, but indexes that were built specifically for reporting on PeopleSoft data. And that has enabled customers to go in and utilize PeopleSoft data and Kibana together without having to custom build everything. So I talked a little bit about the background there and how people, can use that data. But if you want to think about this, you're saying to yourself, well, how can I use Kibana? Or, yes, there's delivered reports and dashboards, but I don't know if that's going to meet what I need. So at some point, you can go and download the latest POM. If you're upgraded to 858 and you get current, you're going to have a bunch of content. But what exactly do you get with that content? You're going to get dashboards, visualizations, some embedded pages you can put right in. But you have an entire list of reporting that you do. And my recommendation is to think about something in your reporting inventory or all your reporting requirements, either that you can't do today or that you have trouble doing. And is that something that could be addressed using Kibana? So if you think back to the page I had up earlier that had all the red and yellow and green dots on it, is there an opportunity there to use something from Kibana? So if you take your list, all of your reporting inventory and your requirements, and you do sort of a rationalization of all those requirements, you may see that you have a gap in information that you're trying to provide to your customer. Maybe you are your end customer and you know that you want this. So you've taken all these requirements, you rationalized it out and said, okay, at the end of the day, I have 100 different reporting requirements. And I know for a fact that these 25 requirements are regulatory reports. I have to create those, and I'm just going to do those in BI Publisher or whatever tool you currently use. Then you may have, well, we have these queries that just end user runs. He goes in, logs in, runs that query, takes him a little while, and it pops up. That may be an opportunity to create something on a dashboard if that query is something that you're only really looking for outliers. Is that a possibility that you could utilize something for Kibana for that, right? So possibility. But you rationalize all those different requirements and say where you're currently doing them if you have challenges getting that information. Now, once you have that list, let's look at what you have from a delivered perspective. Has anything that Oracle provided allow you to meet those needs? And if they do, boom, maybe we could just replace these old dashboards with what's in delivered with Kibana. Now, the last section is, okay, well, I like the idea of using Kibana, but nothing here meets that. So now we want to go through some sort of iterative design and build process. Determine what the data set is that you need, and then get that data set into a search index, or maybe it already exists in a delivered index, they just haven't delivered a report against that, and then build something in Kibana. So there's a process that you're going to walk through there to, process that you're going to walk through to get your final result. And a lot of times companies have not used dashboards or reports that only provide those specific use cases. So this is more of an iterative design process. I mean, we can come in with what we envision, and if I think of it and tell you how it is, I think that's the right solution. But while I think that may or may not work for your organization. So there is, a degree of iterative design and build that goes into that process. So now I'm going to talk a little bit, where I'm going to actually walk you through this demo. And in the demo itself, what I'm going to show you is a grants search index. So I was helping our director from our grants practice, Jessica, with a client who she had spoken with, and they were going through a reporting kind of optimization effort and looking at how can we create some sort of dashboard that allows the customer to get these specific information in one kind of dashboard embedded right into PeopleSoft. And I was like, well, Kibana is definitely an option there. So we went out and we looked at what is delivered from a grants perspective in Kibana, and nothing. Okay, well, did Oracle at least deliver a search index for grants? So we went out and we looked at that search index and we realized, oh, it's great. It has all the grants listed, but it does have how much the grant, maybe a few dollar amounts, but we really couldn't see some of the spend that went against that grant, which is really what the customer was looking for. So in order to do that, we had to build something new. And from there, we had a couple challenges as you go through the way you think something should work, because that's the way we did it in Kibana with the delivered stuff. It didn't work exactly the same, but there were workarounds and we got there. So that's what I'm going to show you on the next few slides, or actually in the demo itself. But our final product here was this project summary dashboard. And this has actually been enhanced quite a bit since I did this, but this was sort of our initial prototype to get buy-in on this project. So looking at, in this case, we were just looking at one project, and then we used what's considered a metric tile here to show how many activities were part of this project and how many days were remaining. So actually this particular project that's selected had, it's actually been expired, but the project still showed 541 days there. Now, the budget remaining, it was, there was still a ton of budget remaining, and then we'd only used 18% of the budget in this particular case. And actual spend versus budget, so we created a graph here to show the budget and then all of the different types of charges against it. So you had expenses, and then pre-encumbered, and then encumbered charges against. Then finally, at the bottom were details of the, really the numbers that support the overall graph here. So the next slide here, this is the demo, and you'll be able to see what we were trying to do. So view the delivered search indexes. So as I mentioned earlier, the first place when you want to build a Kibana index, you need to know if the data set is available. And a lot of the stuff I'm showing, actually, we're not even in Kibana. We're actually in PeopleSoft, because this is the underlying data set. And as we go down here, we had, these are actually two delivered journal and ledger data sets. And I'm just showing you this one here because of these indexes were not search indexes that were existed prior to PUM 32 or 858. I don't remember exactly when this one came in, but what these two search indexes were created specifically to allow you to report on ledger data in Kibana. So you've got a lot of different columns here. I mean, you have your transaction amounts. There was a posted total amount up there. The rest of these are really dimensionalized data so that you can view this data in various different slices when you're doing some sort of reporting here. Yeah, so 101 different columns you would be able to choose from. Now, only the columns that are checked in that field to index box would be available in Kibana. So specifically to our grants example, I looked at the delivered grant search index. And every time you open up a search index, it's going to say that if it's already been deployed, just click through it. But in here, I look down and there's a lot of information like business unit, customer name, contract number, but there aren't really any metrics here or information that you would want to use for reporting, like the amount of dollars spent against this, because it's really just data about the grant itself, not the spend against the grant. Pardon me. So at this point, you would then have to determine where does this data come from? It's coming from this connected query. So Let's go in and look at this connected query and determine, can we actually add these columns of additional spend basically against the query? So what is this made up of? Does it exist here and it just wasn't part of the query? Scroll down, and these are not actually in here. So they've used a couple of expressions to do some dates and then the query itself. So they've joined several different views. And if we look in this GM award, once again, it's more about the award itself and not the spend against it, which is what our data set that we want to use in our dashboard is based on. Yeah, just like an initial award adjusted amount, but no transactions. So at this point, anything else in here I can use and click on one more, but still nothing. So what are my next options? Well, I think we're just going to have to create a new index, or actually a new query, and then the query is the foundation to that search index. So at that point, we create the new query, which I've already done. I'm just going to show you the end result here. So in here, I've gone down, we have our rewards, and down at the bottom, I've created some expressions to allow me to create those cost buckets that I showed you in the original screen back in the presentation prior to me coming to here. So go in, yep, there's a couple calculations based on the ledger type. And if we go put a date in here, yeah, we have the data. We can see if we scroll down across all the different columns. So this worked. So perfect. Now we have a data set. Let's bring this over and create a search definition. So, which I've done already. So I'm just showing you the output of that. There's our source name, which was the query we just looked at, and we've checked. We're getting ready to actually do this, and we're going to check. We want to add this box. So as soon as I click this, oh, wait a minute. I can't actually use the expression in here. So what am I going to do? How can I get around this? I need to be able to show those different ways. And there may be other ways to do this, but what I found what worked pretty well for me was just going to App Designer, and I created a view in this case. So I could just apply this view as the source of my query later. So here's the query behind the view, just showing you that. Now we'll go back into PeopleSoft query and use that view definition to provide the data, the source data set. Once again, yep, scroll down to the bottom. You see we only have the view there, and our fields are down there. We don't need to create them as expressions anymore because they are actual fields. All right, run it, and then we validate the data again, and we can see the same data is here now, but as part of that. So perfect. Now let's go back into search framework and add this information. So once again, we created a new custom search definition using that particular data source, added the required fields there, and now go down to the bottom and we can see no more error messages, and these are already checked. So boom, we have a search definition. You did go through the next steps with the search category, and then we actually need to deploy the search definition, and then we would need to schedule the search definition for populating the data. So here we go. We run it. just an app engine job that populates the search definition. And now we're going to go into Kibana. So once, I'm going to actually pause this right here for a second. Once we populate the data in the search definition, now you're able to use that into Kibana. So you will come to this screen and you would have to create the index pattern and import that. So we would click there, which we've already done. So I'm just showing you the output of after we've created the index pattern. But you bring that in, all of your columns are here. And you will see that if we had maybe 100 columns before, now it ends up being like 300 because they create different versions of each column based on different types of formatting. Now there's this, it jumped actually over to the scripted field, and the scripted field is a way to change labels on data within Kibana, but it's also a way to create calculations in Kibana. And I wouldn't do a ton of extensive calculations here because it can create some performance, but for minor things, I haven't had any issues. Others, over time, and I don't want to tell you this is you can do everything here, but you may be able to do some extensive stuff there. It's a little bit of trial and error and really testing as far as what works and how much it will allow you process without really causing performance issues. Okay, so now what this jumped into here was Discover, which is a way to quickly just view your data set in Kibana. So before we viewed the data in query, now we're looking at the same data here in Kibana. Just as you can see, we have our days remaining. That's the calculation based on that scripted field that I just showed you. So yeah, we have a data set here. So at that point, you could be in Kibana and you could build whatever type of visualization you want. And what we've done then is built this dashboard that I showed you earlier. So this dashboard has all the different projects. Whatever project you wanted to select here, you could select one and it will update the data, showing the one activity tied to that project. We've got once days remaining. All of these are fields that didn't exist in the delivered, and that's why we had to go out and build a new query, a custom query, and then also some of these calculations came from those scripted fields. So a lot of flexibility on the reporting side within Kibana and PeopleSoft. And our customer now is able to use this dashboard or pieces of this dashboard that then drill into a larger dashboard directly within PeopleSoft now in the future. So just a great tool that allows them to visually and quickly get the status of some of their various grants. And we ended up creating two different views of this dashboard. Like right now is a single project view, so it kind of provides that detail. But we also created a view for managers that may have multiple projects, and we allow them to see the various projects, open activities, spend across them. It's a lot of flexibility, but it's going to go back to some of those items I talked about in the presentation itself, which was, it goes back to some of these items that we talked about, right? What are we trying to report on, and then exactly how does it work for you, right? So our initial design didn't look exactly like this, but we landed on this, and then we were able to go back and revisit and say, hey, this is great for one project, but we also have a view where somebody manages multiple projects, multiple grants, and they're able to now utilize this same functionality. I jumped around a little bit. So after all of that, how do you actually make this a reality at your company? So upgrade the People Tools 858 Plus. As I mentioned earlier, Kibana was available in 8.5.7, but you can't really do anything with real PeopleSoft data until 8.5.8. So 8.5.8 minimum plus. If you're an OCI customer, 8.5.9 is out, and you can start previewing some of that and testing some of that real-time functionality. Next, gather a reporting inventory and analyze it. So you know that you have a bunch of reports that your team is using. You know, there's things that are bogging down your system from a performance perspective. Are there data sets or data elements that you have trouble really providing that information, or somebody's taking multiple reports and then mashing that stuff together? Is that an opportunity for something in Kibana? What would it take to create a query that has a lot of that data in so that you could create a visualization? Next, what I spent a ton of time on in this presentation today was familiarize yourself with Elasticsearch in the indexes. How do you actually customize a search index or create your own custom index and then make that available in PeopleSoft? Leverage delivered content. So while in today's example, we had to create a fully custom index, we did look at several indexes that didn't have all of the different columns or data elements checked. Maybe you would want to check one or two of those and get a data element that you didn't have as it was initially delivered. So there are options there. Leverage delivered content, and that is, you know, you have delivered search indexes as well. I think that was the one I just said. Anyway, but you also have the POMs and the dashboards. So the content that Oracle has released with all of these latest POMs, and they've continued to enhance and provide more, whether it's the Kibana specific indexes like the ledger and journal that I showed, or some of the indexes that already exist, but they've added additional elements. They continue to release content that enables reporting in Kibana. And the last thing is partner with an expert. So I think there's one email address there if you're looking for somebody to partner with. No, all kidding aside, but I did put that there. But I recommend, if you want help with Kibana, you know, definitely work with a partner that understands the technology and has done this several times, as it'll make the journey easier for you. Once again, we have quite a few sessions this week. I wanted to go ahead and splash that up here one more time. A lot of content. I do see one or two questions. Oh, no, I just see a chat come in, but it's just from the organizer thanking everyone. Okay. So once again, I'm Gary Tranikowski from SpearMC, and that was our presentation on Kibana and really the road to Kibana, kind of a play on words there, road to Hana in Hawaii. You think about the winding road, but you eventually get to this beautiful place. And that's sort of how I feel our customers have been able to embrace Kibana and the visualizations and dashboards that are now available. There any questions that came in? I don't see any on the chat form. Moving up to the Does anyone have any questions? Typically get a few here. If you want to type them in the chat. All right, well, I thank everyone for attending. If we don't have any questions, then I appreciate you joining, and feel free to reach out to me. I put my contact information up there again. So thank you again, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference. There are a ton of great sessions, and yeah, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Well, it looks like we did just have a question here from Donna. You focus on Kibana dashboards. Is Kibana also effective on other reporting structures? I would say primarily it is used for dashboards, or tiles or related content within PeopleSoft. So I showed a lot of the content there when I was in Kibana. It was directly in Kibana. But what you end up doing after you create content in Kibana, you will then embed that content back into your PeopleSoft pages. So on your home page, you may have a tile that has a small snippet of information, right? So a single visualization. And when you click on that, it would then bring up another dashboard that provides additional information that's related. And but I would say primarily Kibana is good for the visualizations and dashboards. I mean, you can do some ad hoc type, just looking at numbers and messing around, but that's all going to be contingent upon your data set that you're using. So for just exploratory, if you know the search index and the data elements that are in it, you could do some exploratory data analysis there, but you may not have everything that you need in that data set like you would if you're just querying against the transactional tables. But if over time you've developed a very extensive data model, then yeah, you could do some just exploratory data. I mean, you can do some exporting to Excel from there and data dumps as well, but I mean, primarily the use case I would use is more dashboards. Any other questions? Oh, actually, Donna, did that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Any other questions? I'm looking at the chat. I mean, we still have a few more minutes, so if anyone has any questions, I would love to talk about it more. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference and have a great afternoon.